You're listening to Tehachapi with Key Budge, Corey Costello, and Greg Garrett.
Welcome to another episode of Tehachapi. I'm Key Budge. Corey Costello, Greg Garrett join me. Guys, how are you today?
Doing really good, Key. Thank you.
Great.
It is Tehachapi time. I forgot to start it that way.
That's fine.
That's all right. You're good?
Yeah, we're good. We rolled right through it. Yeah.
You like things to follow a certain pattern.
Our loyal listeners know exactly what's going on.
But that's not how.
That's right.
But that's not how podcasts work. Like when old school radio folks like us, yes, you have to have your intro.
Right.
It's got to be the same. The music bed, the intro.
Yep.
Listen to every radio station everywhere. Right. That's how it is. Podcasts are supposed to be different. So you just have to I have to accept that it's going to be different.
It's
we
flowing,
are different.
flowing and free. That's what it is.
Exactly. So we're good.
Well, today we're going to talk about Kern County Department of Human Services, and we're going to bring in Janice Schlegel from the department to talk about all the different things that they've got going on. So that's going to be a very interesting conversation. And when I got a chance to talk to her, some really interesting things that Tehachapi, how it integrates into some of the programs and numbers that really kind of jumped off the page when she and I talked that I thought were fascinating.
I bet the listeners they're probably wondering, what does Kern County Department of Human Services do?
Oh,
right?
they do a lot.
And so I think we're going to learn together what that's all about.
They do a lot. So we'll get into that. As we kick off the new fiscal year, we're not post-COVID, but we've definitely in that transition, solid transition where businesses are able to open and do things. And we're seeing grand reopenings. Not only did we do our ceremony, but other businesses.
There's a pent-up demand for ribbon cuttings and stuff that didn't happen during COVID, although the businesses were operating. So yeah, now we're kind of catching up and doing through the Chamber of Commerce. There's a lot of those going on. So it's really fun to see these folks getting their sort of due that they waited for during COVID. And yeah, it's a lot of those are happening.
So it used to be a toilet paper shortage. Now it's a ribbon shortage because of the pent-up demand. Is it? Yeah, we do have, on a serious note, we have a lot of pent-up ribbon cuttings, grand openings, this, as you state.
Yeah.
Super excited.
Well, here's an interesting thing that I kind of pulled away from this. Virginia Sheridan called me to get ready for the Kelsey's, grand reopening or grand opening since it was postponed due to COVID, even though they got to stay open. They didn't get to celebrate the new ownership. Virginia called me and says, Key, I want to do a press release. I've seen the ones that you put out, and I want to do a press release and really announce that Kelsey's is here.
Good for her.
But look at how they're evolving. Businesses are evolving. We
Yes.
talked about that over the past year. If you don't evolve, you start to go away.
Yes.
And that is something that this business, a small restaurant, decided we're going to announce it to the media, not just keep it local, but hopefully some of the Bakersfield stations will pick it up because it is an iconic location here in town.
Right.
But I just thought, wow, I mean, here is an owner here that just says, I need to do something to come out.
And they're prime examples because Bill and Virginia just took ownership of the restaurant, a few years back, and it was just kind of open part-time as they were trying to get everything squared away. And then they finally opened it full-time back to being the Kelsey's that we all kind of knew. And then COVID hit. And so they had to change their business model. But we use them as an example of people that adjusted on the fly. They built an app for online ordering. They've got a digital ordering system at this place. They have a great social media presence now. They've hired younger people to help out with the social media presence and things like you talked about. And so it's super exciting to see that happen. And then just to allow them to sort of have this event that they wanted to have in 2020 to really mark the fact that they're back open, 7 days a week till 8 o'clock, breakfast, lunch, dinner. I had lunch there today, as a matter of fact, and the food is excellent. So anyway, it's really cool to see them evolve and then also keep this iconic downtown restaurant open.
Grow, evolve, mature. I was on the way to work this morning listening to KUZZ radio, and Tehachapi Mountain Rodeo Association had a commercial about the bull riding this July 4th. It was really done well, and they're targeting the audience in Bakersfield because of the city's IA program that Corey has been managing and helping people understand their customer base, where they're coming from, what are their details, so that we can help them thrive and grow. So it's really all positive.
Yeah.
There's a lot of positive things that are coming out of COVID. We just have to kind of look and identify them and talk about them. As tough as it's been for a lot of people and tragic for a lot of people, there are some positive things that we can find and bring forward. And there's a couple of examples right there.
I was hoping for a lockdown today, though, because I couldn't find a parking spot by City Hall. And I'm like, all these people, for about 15 months, I could park anywhere I wanted.
That's true.
And now every business downtown is busy again and people are working
You should
back
use
in the
those
office.
bike lanes that the city and the county put in and ride your bike to work. Why not?
You know how far I live. I'm
That
not
was-
gonna live. I got to start yesterday to get to work on time.
Well, April was Ride Your Bike
There you go.
month,
Okay.
so we'll let that
so we
go.
missed that.
But we do have some other special things that are occurring each month of the year. And our guest today is going to be able to tell us what's happening in July. And July is a special month. So let's welcome in Janice Schlegel. You are the Public Information Officer for the Kern County Department of Human Services. Welcome to Tehachapi.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So I mentioned that July is a special month that the Department of Human Services recognizes.
Yes, so July is Purple Ribbon Awareness Month, and it's in honor of Caitlin's Law. And Caitlin was a little girl that passed away after being left alone and after being left in a hot vehicle in the year 2000, by her caregiver. And so her family really started this in 2001 to just let people know how hot a car gets and how quickly it gets. So we just do an awareness month, a lot of things, a lot of media coverage. We do little tips to remind people, because people think it can never happen to them. And I've read a lot of stories about why this happens. And, it's usually when people are exhausted or there's a change in their routine, but it is people that are very responsible normally, and they just have a lapse in a day. So we do a lot of reminding during the month about what to do to not forget your kid in the car. And a lot of it that I've read is that now that the laws changed where the car seats are rear facing and they're in the back. And so a lot of times a child might fall asleep and the person driving doesn't hear them, doesn't see them. And, unfortunately that happens. So that's what Purple Ribbon Month is about.
I know new cars these days have, when you turn it off, a light will come on, a buzzer
Reminds
bell
you.
on the dashboard, look in the rear view, look in the rear
Check back
seats.
seat.
But yeah, you're right. I think you could just forget, right? I mean, it's not like somebody would do it on purpose.
Yeah, there's those routines people get in. It's their day to pick the kids up. It's their day to take the kids, and they just forget. I've heard stories of people
Right.
went to work and forgot that they were supposed to drop the child off because it just wasn't their normal routine. So it definitely happens tragically,
Right.
unfortunately.
Well,
Yeah.
it just says we got to slow life down a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
Got to pay attention. And I can't imagine. I mean, especially on the Bakersfield, the Antelope Valley side. Oh my gosh! I mean,
Right.
it just takes seconds before it's unbearable in a car. Tehachapi, we're a little bit cooler, but it's still, the temperatures will exceed a level that would be safe for a child to stay in. Even with it being cooler here.
So the
And
campaign is just to alert, just to remind, push it out there, right?
Right.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. And just to give little tips, take off your shoes, put those in the back seat. Something's gonna remind you
idea.
to get your, shoe on, and put your phone back there. So just little tips to keep people in awareness. We have another little acronym, look before you lock. So anything to get in your mind to remember that, that could happen to you. We don't want it to.
Well, if you can send me any of that information, if you guys put out anything for social media, I'll make sure we put it out. Or if you tag us in our
Absolutely.
social media, we'll share it on ours and really help send that message out for you, because that's an important message to send.
Thank you. We'll do.
So, Janet, looks like you guys have a lot going on. I mean, with the Department of Human Services. I mean, resources for social work, foster care, adoption, human trafficking, child abuse hotline, domestic violence, housing, health and wellness, safe surrender, baby awareness. You got a lot of programs that you're sort of monitoring and assisting the public with.
We do. The Department of Human Services is the largest county department in the whole Kern County. We have 9 offices throughout the county. The closest one to Tehachapi, I think, is Mojave, our Mojave office. But you're right, we help people in crisis with benefits such as CalWorks, CalFresh, Medi-Cal. We help people get jobs when they're struggling. Maybe they need a little help with their resume or their ability to interview. We help people. We also do, like you said, child protective services, foster care. We have an adoption agency. So yeah, we're doing a lot of things out there just to keep children and families safe, and strengthen families is our main goal.
Those are all good goals. And so I read somewhere where Tehachapi actually leads the charge in the county for foster and adoption. Is that right?
Tehachapi is known for having wonderful adoptive families. And in the last 5 years, 87 children have been adopted from families living in Tehachapi. Yeah, I think that's something Tehachapi can be proud of. I think that's great.
So 87 children in the system were adopted by Tehachapi area parents.
Yes.
Wow, what a blessing.
Yeah, that is awesome.
I remember when I was a kid, there was another kid down the street that was, I think he was in foster care. It wasn't adopted. And then one day he just kind of disappeared and kind of bumped from family to family, if you will, until they find a home. And I can't imagine not having a home, right? As a child, not having a home.
Stability is so important.
Challenging. It's challenging for, the kids that have to come into our care that need our protection. But, even being in foster care, I'm sure a lot of kids would rather be with their families. So, we do the best we can to find the good people who are doing foster care for the right reasons and who really love the children.
Right.
Well, if there's a family out there that's listening right now and going, maybe foster care is something that I could do, what should this person do? How do they reach out to Human Services, or where do they go if they would like to participate?
That's a great question. So our website has a lot of information on it. They can check out our website, and the address is kcdhs.org, or they can call 661-631-6204, and they can set them up to go through the process to become an approved foster family. And they attend an orientation, and then our department staff will take them through that process.
Do you need to be a foster family before you can look into adoption? Or if you're looking at adoption of you hear people talk about it, can they look straight to adoption?
It's not often that it goes straight to adoption. You do need to become a foster parent first. And part of the reason is that when a child comes into our care for protection, those parents, those biological parents, our number one goal is that their parents can get their children back, that they can make the changes necessary to what we call reunify with their child, because that's what we really want to see happen. So oftentimes, if someone wants to just adopt, they need to know that's going to be what we're going to try to see happen first. And so really, we encourage foster parents to kind of hold loosely, but love the kids too, because we don't always know what the outcome is going to be. As we want to see these parents get better. And if they can't, then it can lead to an adoptive situation.
How does Kern compare to other neighboring counties for placement in the foster and or adoption? Are we below average, above average? The 87 in Tehachapi sounds like a big number.
Yeah. Previous to COVID, we had approximately 200 children were being adopted per year in Kern County, per fiscal year. So I don't know other counties' numbers. I can compare us to LA. We have approximately 2,000 children right now in foster care, and it changes every day. Some kids do reunify or some children get adopted. But in other counties like Los Angeles, that number is much larger.
Of course, because of the population. Yeah,
it really depends on the county.
Well, good. And I know there's another program, the Surrender Baby. Why don't we talk about that a little bit? Because I think that's a little known fact. If you're a young mother and you go through the pregnancy and you just don't feel like you can care for the baby, you can legally give that baby up at birth.
Yes. Yeah. So the Safely Surrender Baby program was made into law in, I believe, 2001 in California. And each state in California has this law, and it's a little different in each state. But in California and in Kern County specifically, the law allows a woman in crisis who is not able to keep her baby to surrender the baby within 3 days of birth to a fire station or a hospital emergency room staff person. And as long as the baby is not harmed in any way, it's completely anonymous. We call it no name, no shame, no blame. When the baby is surrendered, that surrendering person has 14 days with which to go back and reclaim the baby if something changes in their situation. So the mother's given a little bracelet that matches the baby. And so they can come back. Since 2006 in Kern County, we've had 86 babies surrendered. So, and I believe maybe 4 of those have returned for the child. Mm-hmm. So just to give you an idea, it's a very effective program.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you want the child to succeed in life. And if it's
Exactly.
You want to get it into a foster care, whatever, so that child has a chance to be, a great human being.
And they wrote the law to, prevent babies from being left in unsafe situations and abandoned. And that's the whole purpose for it. So it's a lot of times people say to me, how could someone abandon or how could someone surrender their baby? And I think it takes a lot of courage for someone to realize that they are in a situation they can't handle and to put the baby first.
But these topics we're talking about, I quite honestly can't relate, with a child in the back seat maybe, or surrendering a baby, or foster or adoption. But human trafficking also is a big deal, right? All these items, I think, you can't really relate. But if you walk in certain people's shoes for a certain amount of time, you might see where these things really start to come into play. They're real, they're serious, and they need to be taken care of and managed. And I applaud you and your staff for doing that. But human trafficking, let's talk about that for a second.
And Kern County is doing a really good job of working together in coalitions to help make a lot of changes in this area. But the Department of Human Services gets involved when we find a child who's trafficked, so under 18, and we do have that quite often. So those children come into our care, and we try to help them. That's an area we do need foster homes for, because as you can imagine, that's a challenging population of children to help, because so oftentimes they have been, lied to, and their thinking is just off quite a bit, and they need to understand self-esteem and their value so that they aren't, in that situation. But we have a wonderful team of social workers, and that's all they do is help that population of young women and men who have been trafficked.
The human trafficking is something we talked about with Tiffany Ray, who is Miss United States. That was one of the things that she put on her platform to talk about. It was the first time we had broached it here on Tehachapi. But to really kind of think about, and we talk about here, human services, that this is something that you guys focus on, that it is something here in Kern County. This is real. This isn't just something you see on 2020.
Or in a different country.
Right.
I think you see those locked up abroad biographies or whatever, and you assume this only happens in third world countries or something with drug cartels. But that's not the case. I mean, this is legitimately in our own backyard.
Right. And there, as I said, there's a lot of collaboration with this topic in Kern County. Canyon Hills Church has done quite a bit to fundraise for this area. And we've also worked closely. The department works with a team of people with law enforcement. Some of the things they're trying to change are making the people who pay for the services more accountable, and them being more and sort of the criminals in the case, not the people who are forced to traffic. And so I think that's kind of changing things a little bit. But it's really interesting when you speak to someone who, a child who's pulled out of that situation, they don't really see it as trafficked. They don't really see themselves as being trafficked. They really feel that they're in charge and that they're doing something that they want to do. So, it takes quite a bit to help change the thinking in those kind of situations.
So, Jen, I have a question. I mean, obviously you guys deal with your department, everybody in the 9 various departments under human services. You obviously deal with a lot of heartbreaking situations, right? And some people, when they're at their most vulnerable, what moments are the opposite of that? I mean, what are the moments that you and your colleagues really feel like the opposite, that you're doing good, it's a win, and you really are happy about what you're doing that day?
Yeah, thank you. That's a really good question. I love that. I could think of a couple of things that we do that come to mind. One of them was, we used to run a program called the Heart Gallery, but we still do adoption for children that are special. And we had a little girl named Precious, and she had lived all her life in a hospital setting because of her parents' inability to care for her, or they didn't want to, but she didn't need to be living in a hospital. It was just, she had severe medical needs that could have been handled at home. But we did find an adoptive home for her, and the family just amazing family just adored her. And to see her picture a couple years later after we found that home for her, she just was in her, happy place, treated so well. So that's when you see that kind of thing, that makes you realize what you're doing is making a big difference.
The great human stories. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I love those stories. So we do something called National Adoption Day too in November, and we just throw on a huge party for all the kids getting adopted, and just to see the love in their lives and the knowing what they've been through. It just keeps you going.
Makes it worth it at the end of the day.
Makes it worth it, yeah.
For sure. Going back to the safe surrender, in the city of Tehachapi, we have Family Life Pregnancy Center. Do you work with them at all? Because they provide an amazing service. Dee Zimmerman is their CEO now. Met with her, and you mentioned churches earlier. And the grassroots effort with Family Life Pregnancy, they're a nonprofit, they're out and about, they're educating the churches, that whole, and then the county government working together, I think is really the key to, moving forward.
You're absolutely right. And in fact, the Safely Surrender Baby Coalition, I chair that coalition. And we have the Bakersfield Pregnancy Center. So it sounds like the one in Tehachapi may be a different one, but gosh, we'd love to have them join our coalition because it takes all of us. We work with the hospitals, we work with law enforcement, the pregnancy centers, some of our family health care. So we put posters up about safe surrender everywhere on dumpsters and just everywhere you could think that a woman in crisis might be. So you're right, though. We have to work together on all these topics are such crisis-oriented thing, and we need the church, and we need the community, and we need the businesses to all work together.
We need
to take care
people's
of families.
eyeballs, keeping an eye out on each other, right? It's neighbors helping neighbors. At the end of the day, it's neighbor helping neighbor.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's exactly right.
I know, especially over this past 18 months during COVID, we did a lot of work with our nonprofits, with private business, just the community at the level. And we saw success beyond what we could have imagined because of the collaboration of everyone. We knocked down the bureaucracy and we talked to each other and said, hey, what's the common goal and how can we do it? What do you bring to the table? What do you bring to the table? What do we need to bring to the table? And boy, we were able to work together to really accomplish some things that I thought were pretty cool.
Well, and thinking about bringing things to the table, do you participate in the National Night Out program that is held every year across the country?
We do.
Yeah, great. So we have a big one in Tehachapi at Central Park every year. So if you haven't been before, we'd love to have you participate this year.
Yeah, we would love to be in Tehachapi to do anything. We try to get as many places as we can be during the events. I used to have an outreach team of 6 people, but because of COVID, they've all kind of gone to different areas of our department. So we are looking forward to, now that things are opening up, getting back out there again.
You bring up a lot of the community partnerships and that the church angle too, and that sort of thing. And, the city of Tehachapi, because we have limited resources, we don't have a giant budget for things like social services and that sort of stuff. But we found that there are experts, and a lot of them are churches and nonprofits that do that stuff. And again, to your point, Key, going back to cutting the bureaucracy, why should we need to get involved? I mean, they do it. We've worked with these groups. It's even part of my economic development strategy is to partner with churches. And I'll bring that up at conventions, and people look at me like I'm crazy, and I explain why, and that you have a group of doers that are out there doing, and they like, oh, I never thought about it like that, So I think it's important for anyone, whether it's a city or it's a Department of Human Services, to have those nonprofit and even those religious group connections to help in some of these areas, either extend your own programs or maybe do something that you don't have the you don't have the funding or the resources to do yourself.
That's super important. Economic development is not just opening a new business. It's the health of the city or the community. Just for the listeners, National Night Out is always the first Tuesday of August. This year it's Tuesday, August 3rd at Central Park in downtown Tehachapi. So we invite everybody to come out. We have a lot of participation. A lot of kids running around. We've got free food, a lot of information booths, so you can really learn a lot and have a good time with your neighbors.
Yeah, that's a fun event. I'm glad to hear you guys are having it again. I haven't heard in Bakersfield much about that happening, but hopefully that's going to happen again here too.
Jan, I got to say, going over your website at kcdhs.org, the amount of resource information that's available, it's overwhelming. I mean, it's very well organized and structured, but I couldn't believe how many different things were available there. If you're in a domestic violence situation. There was resources there that might fit that need. If you had something regarding housing, or if it was the health and wellness, all of these different resources and connections that are outside of maybe your organization, you've brought those into to share to make it really easy for people to find what they're looking for.
Oh, good. I'm glad our website's helpful. I'm glad that we're continually updating it, trying to make sure it's relevant and, that people can find the help that they need.
Yeah. And again, folks, if you've got any questions or you're just kind of curious about something, you want to find more information, go to kcdhs.org and it's a very easy website to maneuver through, and then it will send you to other sites if you're looking for specific information. It was really easy. And then I'll ask you anything that you wanted to bring to the table we haven't talked about yet, but was the child abuse hotline. And that is something that I thought was one of the things that bounced out to me right away when I looked at your site. And I thought that was important. And that number is 631-6011. And that number is set up for, is it just both physical, mental, and sexual child abuse?
Yeah, so there's different kinds of abuse. There's general neglect, physical abuse, sexual abuse, exploitation. So any kind of child abuse, though, that's happening, people can call us and we will guide them through that process. It's all anonymous, 24/7. We have someone on call all the time. And if someone calls and it's a sexual abuse and physical abuse, we also get law enforcement involved with us to help. So, but yeah, that is one of the things that I'm proud of for our department is that during COVID, we were one of the first counties to go completely virtual with our child abuse hotline. So our staff was working from home right away and still able to respond to thousands of calls a month. So they do a great job.
And that hotline number again is in the 661 area code 631-6011. We've talked about a lot of things. We've probably scratched the surface on a lot. Is there anything that you wanted to make sure that we talked about that we haven't done so yet?
One of the things we need resource families or foster families to consider fostering kids with special needs. So, if there's anyone out there who has just a love for children with special needs of any kind, that is a need that we have, and they can certainly call us and we can explain more about that.
And just call the 631-6000?
They can call 631-6204 for that one. They can always call the 6000 number. That's kind of a generic number. And then they'll go to, get taken to another place depending on their need. But the 631-6204 takes them directly to information about becoming a foster parent.
I'm sure if anybody called any of the numbers, they would be directed appropriately. Yeah.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And the website has, like you said, it can take you directly to numbers. If people need help with food insecurity, we have CalFresh, and that has been a big thing we've been able to provide to the community during COVID too, when people are out of work. So also Medi-Cal, insurance. Sometimes people don't realize they may qualify for that. They lose their job or they have a situation change. So our numbers have been up in those areas because of the job loss.
And how do you vet that? So if somebody comes to you and says, I'm out of a job, I need food, I need money, do you do some vetting there so that people don't abuse that system?
Yes. Yeah, there's a whole process on the website that we take people through, and there's eligibility factors and things they have to do and show us in order to qualify for these kinds of services. And sometimes they're not long-term services. Sometimes people just need a little bit of help during a difficult time too. So, we want to see people become self-sufficient. That's our hope. But we're there as a safety net, as a resource during difficult times too for people.
Right. You never know when you're going to need help, but you don't want people abusing. And we've seen and heard that, right. I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We want to remind everyone that July is Purple Ribbon Month. Do not leave your kids or your pets in a locked car, windows up. It gets hot quickly. We just absolutely don't want to hear any tragic news about someone forgetting that their kids were in the back seat or their grandkids, or we've got some kind of a rescue effort on hand in a parking lot somewhere. We just don't want that. So Purple Ribbon Month. Are we going to put purple ribbons up? Are we going to see that? Are they available through any programs where we can display a purple ribbon, or are we just encouraging people to go run down to Michael's and buy some purple ribbon and tie it on a tree?
If any of your listeners, or if you guys want some, we can send them to you. We have an abundance of purple ribbons, and our staff hasn't completely returned to the workplace. So a lot of people still working virtually. So we're happy to share them. And they're little purple ones you can put on your lapel. Just to remind people. So yeah, we're happy to share.
Absolutely. Send us 3 so that way each of us can display that this month.
There you go.
Okay, we'll do. Thank you.
Good deal. Anything else, Jana, that you want to share that we haven't touched on?
We are also responsible for the Jameson Children's Center. I don't know if you guys knew that or if you're aware of that, but that's another one of our areas. So children who do come into our care go and stay at the Jameson Center, and they always have needs for things in the community. They are always in need of new children's undergarments and things like that. So if people want to, consider helping out, that's another area they could help us out.
Christmas time. I've participated a couple times in the big Christmas event. And just, it's very rewarding, but just see the smiles on the kids' faces. And when, people are thinking about them, the community thinks about them, and there's something there for them at Christmas time. And then I know all the extra gifts kind of go. So that way there's birthday gifts during the year. Mm-hmm. Everything has a purpose and is used throughout the year. So any chance you have just to share. And is the information regarding the Jameson House on the website also?
It is on the website. And, I just thought of one last thing, Key, is that we also do a program called the Holiday Cottage. And this will be our 34th year, but we let the community know, all the children in foster care send us their wishes for Christmas, and we let the community help us fill those wishes. So we've been very successful in getting those gifts to kids during Christmas. Yeah, that's another one to look out for. We'll be sharing information on our social media probably in November and October about that.
Excellent. Jana Schlegel, the Public Information Officer for the Kern County Department of Human Services. Thank you for all your time and the work that you and your department do.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, guys, Department of Human Services for Kern County, my gosh.
Yeah, mind-boggling, right?
A lot of stuff.
The catalog of things that they do is huge.
Yeah, I think we even did some job fairs because they even have that sort of employment board.
They do.
That's underneath their umbrella as well. So we've done a few job events with them as well in the past here in Tehachapi as they're hiring around Kern.
I think a lot of people don't understand that the county government is an extension of the state government. And they provide not only, the sheriff and the fire and all the planning aspects, but they provide the human piece of it, the extension, the unemployment, all the things that we talked about, just moments ago, and so much more. And it's so important to continue to be able to assist people and prop them up when they need propping up, right?
And that's what's kind of good with doing this podcast, is to be able, people probably don't think, if you don't need the services of the Department of Human Services, you probably just don't know what they do, and so we sometimes don't even know what they do because they do so much. So I think it's great to be able to get somebody on, hey, what are you working on? That way, at least the folks know what the Department of Human Services does and what kind of falls under their really, broad umbrella.
It's not just a big bureaucracy. They're real people doing real good work.
My first chance that I got a chance to work with them was during the public information officer meetings that we were having on a regular basis that started after the Ridgecrest earthquakes, and they were involved, and Jana was involved, and we got a chance to talk about each of what we did at our agencies, and that's where my first exposure to what her work is and how busy they are. Yep. It's pretty amazing.
Key, you mentioned the Ridgecrest earthquake. July 4th is the 2-year anniversary, and you and I were talking earlier. I think I'm going to try to get Ron Strand, their city manager, on. We can get him on this podcast. But, emergency operations, really, it starts at home. We've said this a lot, but it really does. You need to be prepared at home so that you can start. If you're not prepared at home, you can't assist your neighbor or your community. And don't think that big government is going to come in and save you. Look at Katrina. Look at all these things. There are lots of textbook examples of, the government not being able to take care of everybody. It's unreasonable.
It's an overwhelming.
So we're going to get Ron on this podcast.
Being self-sustainable, we talk about, emergency preparation is at least 3 days. Right. Longer is better, but at minimum of 3 days. And I think, Ron would be able to give us an insight as to what they saw, how long it took for backup resources to come in. And, they didn't lose everything, but what they did lose was impactful on how they did business on a day-to-day, level for them as a city government and for all of their citizens.
And then despair starts to set in, right? We have a program now with you and Tyler Napier at the Public Works Department, and we have every new employee gets a emergency operations bucket full of, water, rations, gloves, whatever it happens to be. There's like 40 items in there. And we have a discussion with them, but we also have ongoing training because we want to be prepared. We're the first responders in the city of Tehachapi.
Right. We're all disaster service workers.
It's not fire and police, right? It is, but all of us together are going to solve the problem.
Well, you think about every police officer will be dispatched, every firefighter will be dispatched at some point to some call, and then we're the backup to the backups. We'll have to, maybe we're going to be the ones out standing in the street directing traffic or identifying, places of need in a disaster.
Well, and all you need is right now, as we're recording this, I'm looking out your window and I can see smoke. There is a fire over in the Willow Springs, Oak Creek area, right? What if an earthquake happened in 10 minutes from now? They have two issues. Now, the fire department is stretched even thinner. We need to be prepared, all of us.
And it's easy to do. And you can find information at FEMA.gov on how to prepare for an emergency for yourself, your family, a loved one. Think about a family member. My parents live in the San Fernando Valley. So I need to kind of give a little thought, what would it be like for them if something was to happen? Oh, well, it's the big city. Well, there's a lot more people.
Yeah.
So the chance for them to get to resources might be a little bit easier to get to a place, but their resources might not be available due to the volume of people. Right. So having things ready to go is something that's really important.
And quite frankly, PSPS has forced us to be a little more ready, if you will, at ready.
And that's a conversation we're going to have with Southern California Edison in the next couple of weeks. Edison's going to come back on, and we're going to talk about what they've done to prepare the Tehachapi area, not just in the city, but the overall Tehachapi area of hardening the grid. And, what are the things that what does that mean? What does that mean to the SCE subscriber?
Yeah.
And, and then the fact we've got a drought going on too,
right?
So that heightens that. So lots of things that we've got in the queue that we're looking at and want to bring the experts in to provide that information for you. So guys, anything else that we want to?
I think we're good, Keem. And this has been a really great. Yeah, we've been touching on a lot of items, and I appreciate digging down from time to time.
What's funny is with that one department, we covered a whole spectrum of things. But it's really in the name, right? Human Services. Right. And that's the Kern County Department of Human Services. That was Janice Schlegel. If you want information that we talked about, it can all be found at www.kcdhs.org. And all of the information is there. They got a great site, or you can give them a call at 661-631-6000. We invite you to send your show thoughts, ideas, a topic that you'd like us to cover. We'd be more than happy to explore that and try and find that guest to answer those questions for you. Send that email to media@TehachapiCityHall.com. We appreciate your time, and we'll catch you on a future episode of Tehachapod.
Tehachapod is a conversation about Tehachapi designed for the people who live here or who would like to know more about this mountaintop community. If you have a question you would like answered, email media@TehachapiCityHall.com. We will try to answer it on a future episode of Tehachapod.